Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the 18th episode of the Primllife podcast. I have someone on today who has probably experienced more than most people could ever think to experience in whole lives. You know, the stories and the emotional depth that he's gone through over these past few years is absolutely insane. And when I heard his story, I started crying because how intense it was and how much of a transformation he was able to make. And we talk about fitness transformations all the time. He made a whole life transformation. You know, went from truly some of the darkest days I've ever heard someone honestly ever talk about to owning his own gym, being a pastor, and creating his own YouTube channel and affecting a ton of change in the world and changing a lot of people's lives. So it's great to have you on, Kevin. How are you doing today?
Yeah, thank you very much, Colin. Appreciate it. Doing well. It's nice that we get to do this in person. I've watched some of your other videos, and you're always got somebody from some other part of the country or part of the state on their home one. So it's nice to be able to have you here in person. And I think this is the first time we've met in person, yeah?
Yeah, of course.
You've never been out to Metroflex before.
I have not. Hopefully we're going to change that today.
I hope so, because you now have a membership there. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah, that'll be great to have you out there and actually using some real equipment to get those numbers up.
Because you have that Nautilus stuff, right?
We have some great vintage stuff. Yeah. Well, I'm an equipment collector. I mean, I try to hide the fact I'm a nerd behind face tattoos and muscles, but I love Star Wars, and I like collecting vintage workout equipment from the 70s and 80s. So, yeah, we actually, as of right now, I just picked up, after I picked up 2 Nautilus pieces beginning of last month, and that now put us as the most original first gen or second gen Nautilus pieces of any commercial gym in the state of Wisconsin. So. And I think the only reason why I can't say the Midwest is there's a place in Iowa that has more than us.
Okay.
But otherwise, we have the most first and second gen vintage Nautilus stuff, which is, I mean, that was Dorian Yates, that was Mike Metzer. I mean, this is the golden era bodybuilding
Stuff that was almost forgotten, and now you're bringing it back.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's great stuff.
Yeah, that's
the best part is watching people your age that have never seen it before try to work out it. They're upside down or backwards or laying. They should be seeing it. That's fun.
You know, I can't say that won't be me. I was looking at some of these pieces of equipment, you know, on the Instagram, and I was like,
I'll tell you how to use it after I watch each.
Okay. And like, it's tag your laughs, right?
For me.
Yeah. That's perfectly fine. But yeah, no, it's great to have you on.
Thank you.
Your story started probably a really long time ago with you being in the military.
Yeah, well, you have to say a really long time ago. I'm not that old.
Yeah. Well, compared to me, I'm a young guy.
I mean, I really think that's kind of when some of the big changes started happening. Aside from that, I mean, just kind of normal, everyday stuff. But yeah, probably around 2000, about 20 years ago, is when kind of my story took off.
Yeah, of course. And what did you do in the military?
So I was 12 years active duty. I'm an active duty combat veteran, disabled combat veteran. Started off in the Marine Corps, then went into the Army. You know, just nothing spectacular. I mean, just standard career. But the thing was, that was supposed to be my life. I mean, I wanted to retire out of the military after 20 years at age 37. I'm 40 now, so I would have been retired by now if things didn't go the way they did. But yeah, I mean, I came back from our last combat tour. I was with the 3rd Infantry Division out of Fort Stewart, Georgia, 6th Cavalry, and it was a difficult deployment. I mean, I'm sure there's other units that suffered more casualties than our unit, but just some of the things that I saw that I disagreed with that just disturbed me greatly. Images that are stuck in my head that I can't get rid of. Things that happened, people that we lost, the ways it happened. It affects you, bro. I mean, it affected me deeply. I came home and I started using alcohol, drugs, and pornography to cope.
Yeah.
You know, that was my big way to cope. And I always tell people, I said, the 3 most effective coping mechanisms in the world is alcohol, drugs, and pornography. And the reason why is because all 3 of those will completely numb you out. They will dull your senses. They will let you forget about everything. And they all play on those dopamine receptors. I mean, I'm a dopamine addict. You know, I just, whatever can push more dopamine in my body, I want more of it. So, I mean, that was the most effective coping mechanisms I think that are out there, and I got just sucked into all of them. The bad part is those are the 3 most dangerous coping mechanisms in the world, because all 3 of them will destroy your life, and they destroyed mine. I came out of the service. I was struggling. They stuck me on recruiting duty, which was a death sentence for me. You're already struggling with some of the things that you had to do and see and be a part of. And then when you're told you got to put more butts in uniforms during a time of war, and I'm talking to guys, your age, 18, 19, 20-year-old guys, and I'm having to promise their parents they're not going to go to war. Nothing's going to happen to them. They're going to be fine. It's tough. I mean, I'm spending the last 3 years of my career lying, trying to get people in boots and doctoring and falsifying reports to try to make numbers. And then ego feeds more pride and ego, and you do well. And I became the #1 recruiter in the continental United States last year. But all the while, I'm embezzling money from the government. I'm stealing. I'm committing fraud, social security theft. I had 15 felonies. I finally got caught because of my arrogance, my pride, my abuse of women, not physical abuse, but just treating women like commodities, feeds my ego, continuing to dig myself into a hole through drugs and alcohol, became a functional alcoholic at the time, and it just blew up. I mean, you can't live that lifestyle very long. It does catch up to you. Yeah. And when I fell hard. I got removed from the military, ended up having my home foreclosed on, my bank account was seized, my cars were repossessed. My whole world crumbled. Yeah. And I always tell people, kind of as a way to show where I was at and what God allowed me to go through was, I had a $7,000 kitchen set. And I would tell people when they came to my house that it's a $7,000 kitchen set. Mm-hmm. Because when you come to my house to play poker with me at night, I want you to understand that I'm that much better than you as a person. Because I have that and you don't, Yeah. I want you to really know that I'm better than you because my identity is in what I own. Yeah. What I can buy and the power that I wield because of my success, I'm better than you as a human. And that's where I was at. And that's a horrible place to be. But I think that is the stand though right now. I mean, we get our identity off of our bank account, our Instagram followers, our YouTube channel, our physical appearance, the numbers we put up at a meet. And this is garbage. I mean, personally, if that's where your identity comes from, so you're a very sad, shallow human. Mm-hmm. And that's who I was. So praise God, I lost everything. I remember driving my car around at the time. I'm virtually homeless, no career, no job. I got a 2-year-old daughter. I'm parking my car in different parking lots every night because I don't want the repo man to get it. Yeah. They already took all my other ones, and I have one left, and I'm just trying to make sure that I don't get that one taken from me. And I remember kind of the moment that made me realize I had hit rock bottom was there was a daycare that was helping me out with my daughter. I was trying to find odd jobs, and in the meantime, I had to have my daughter taken care of, and they were helping me out. I mean, I was like behind on months worth of pay, but they were letting my daughter come there. She's 2 years old, and it's the dead of summer, and I don't care how many times I tell the story. It's emotional for me. I can tell this yesterday, and it still hits me hard. My daughter's crying in the back of the car, and she's sweating because I can't turn on the air conditioning because I know that if I turn on, I'm going to run out of gas, and I don't have enough money to put gas in the car to get home. That's bottom, bro. That was a hard moment for me. I remember just laying there in this house that I'm staying at, and I got a mattress on the floor, and I got no furniture, no nothing, no food. I got no life anymore, really. Yeah. And I cried out to God. I was never a religious person. I wasn't raised in the church. I wasn't an educated person or a reader back then, but I knew that there was a God, and I believed in the God of the Bible. Mm-hmm. And I knew a little bit about him from that. And I just remember crying out and saying, Lord, if you can change my life, you can fix it, or you can use it particularly for anything, I'll give you every day for the rest of my life. And maybe not the best thing to do, like, God, if you do this, then I'll do this. Yeah. But the heart behind it was, man, I've ruined everything. Yeah. I've chased after all the wrong stuff, and I just want to be used by the creator of the universe, and whatever that might be. And it's hard when you look like this, and you have a criminal background, and you have no education, to really be the type of person who wants to hire. So I figured, especially in ministry, there's no way I'm ever going to go anywhere. So my dream was to be not a custodian of a church, because I can't even fix things. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't do well with tools. I can't repair stuff. So I was hoping, well, I could be a janitor. Like the military prepared me to sweep and mop and clean toilets. What if I could just be a janitor at church? And truly, bro, I would have been happy, you know?
Yeah.
If I could have spent the next 30 years of my life just sweeping up after people in a place where God was moving, that'd be an honor for me. Obviously, God had different plans for me, and I'm grateful for it. Within a year of that day, I had met my bride, who you met when you came to my house, Samantha. I had a job as a youth minister at church. I was working at a gym. I was running 3 different gyms, 3 Anytime Fitnesses in the Dane County area as a personal training director. Still not even a certified trainer, which is, but I'm running the training. So I mean, we're doing well. You know, I have a car that I didn't steal, that was paid for with real money. You know, but I mean, it's a crappy car with 200,000 miles. We're in a crappy little apartment. We're using food stamps. It's a far cry from the 6 figures and the excess I had. But I had never been more satisfied in my life, you know. Riding around that little stupid old 1990s police car, you know, listening to the FM radio because there's no CD player in it, in our tiny little 900 square foot home. Like that was the most satisfying experience. I mean, I was very happy, and that was about a year after this. And you know, from there, God just started transforming our life, and a lot has happened since then. And I think, you know, we could talk more about that. Yeah. The gym, the church came in, but just that moment of where I was because of my own doing, and where God brought me to, it was huge. It was absolutely huge for me.
And then, would you say that rock bottom was watching your little daughter in the car?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can say I had more shocking, like I could tell stories that seem more shocking and more raw and horrible. But looking at a child that you made and you brought into the world who is suffering because of your poor choices, and there's nothing you can do about it, to me, I think that's bottom, man. Yeah. I mean, shoot, I could tell stories about being, you know, passed out in places I had no idea where I was with, you know, the wrong group of people in the wrong situation with sketchy things around us that would that are not the most reputable. Yeah, absolutely. But when you watch your child, you know, a little innocent kid, suffer because their dad's an absolute tool bag, making bad choices, and can't pull his life together, that's tough. I mean, that's rock bottom.
Yeah. And you talked about your addictions early on, and it's crazy how so many of the things that you listed are rewarded by today's world.
Oh, absolutely.
And encouraged even too, which is even harder to believe.
Yeah, binge drinking is encouraged. Pornography is a healthy thing to bring into a relationship nowadays, or something to share with your friends on social media. Benzos, opioids is what I used. I mean, those things are, you know, it's a Friday night for some people, and it is. It's applauded, it's encouraged. But that's usually because those people are ignorant. They haven't gone down as far as I did.
Yeah.
You know, you don't know what it looks like till you have a raging sex addiction. You realize I'm unable to form an intimate bond with another human because I have reduced human relationships to a sexual transaction.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many guys, because I openly talk about my struggles, my addictions with porn, alcohol, and drugs. You don't hear a lot of people say the P word though, right? The porn word. That one people freak out about. If you talk about that, like, ooh, that's weird. Man, it's downloaded millions and hundreds of million times a day. This is a prevalent thing. People are doing this.
And kids are finding it.
When you talk about it, people kind of freak out. I don't care. I'm 40 years old. I have nothing to hide anymore. I have nothing to be ashamed of, and I love talking about it because I think it's something that needs to be talked about, especially in the fitness world where we're so consumed with images, right? Mm-hmm. So I talk about this stuff freely, and actually I can't tell you how many times I've had somebody come into the gym, kind of wait till nobody's around, come up like, hey man, Kevin, can I chat with you a little bit? I'm like, yeah. They're like, you know, I listened to that video you dropped, or maybe I put something on my Instagram about it, and they said, I'm really struggling with that same thing. I'm struggling with looking at pornography. Yeah. I said, what do you mean by you're struggling, right? Because everybody just thinks it's a healthy thing to do. And they said, you know, I found myself going to it more than I want to go to a relationship. And I said, well, that's what happens. You end up getting to a point when you go down this rabbit hole, you don't even know you're doing it, where all of a sudden one day you're going to meet an amazing young woman. You're going to meet a beautiful young woman who wants to have a relationship with you, who wants to be intimate with you, and you're going to find that you're going to be unable to do anything with that woman, whether it's physically perform with her or form an intimate relationship with her that is meaningful, because you have reduced sex to something that it shouldn't be. You've made it a transaction as opposed to an intimate bond that's supposed to bring two people together.
Yeah.
And that was one of the hardest things when I got married 10 years ago, was I didn't know how to have that relationship. I was with strippers and unsavory women, and I meet this beautiful woman who had been saving herself for marriage, and I'm like, well, here's my crap. This is what I'm bringing to the table. So, I mean, it took years, and there's still times where images pop in my head, and I'm like, I hate it, I hate it. But yeah, these are things that are applauded, and we don't realize just how damning they are and how destructive they are to having any sort of semblance of a healthy relationship.
Yeah, of course. And how, on the upswing of things, how did you manage to cut all of your addictions out of your life?
Yeah, the gym was the first one. I think that kind of leads to Metroflex. I would say I'm a huge believer that through Jesus Christ, there's power to overcome any addiction. I'm a firm believer in that. But I'm also not this crazy tinfoil hat wearing, jean skirt rocking Christian who lives in a bubble who says, well, you shouldn't use medication, and you shouldn't try to find these things, and you don't go to a doctor, you just go to prayer. Like, listen, man, I go to prayer first, and then I use whatever resources that are available through the means that God has given us. So I'm on lorazepam and citalopram and Venlafax, and I've been on every type of crazy person medicine. I'm still on them because, praise God, man, there's smart people out there, and I know I need my meds. And while God's working on healing stuff in my brain from things I've experienced, I'm going to go ahead and use my shaker cups. That's what I call them. They're my shaker cups of pills. But what I found was I needed to cope. I was a pretty pissed off, angry young man. I was molested from age 12 to 17 by a grown man who was a friend of the family. He was actually, he was one of my instructors at a particular hobby sport type thing. I don't want to give too many details for privacy's sake, but he was a position of authority, and I would have to see him every day. For 5 years, this guy groomed me, coerced me, and I found myself being molested repeatedly by this guy. And that really affects you, I mean, once I realized what had been happening to me as you get older, there's this anger you got. I think that's one of the reasons why I love the military, was it allowed me to use my anger and be rewarded for my anger.
And to justify this.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, being able to know that you can shoot someone, that you get to go into violent combat and that stuff's rewarded. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So when I came out, the problem was I had all that anger and now more, I just saw my whole life destroyed, so I got that anger, plus the anger that was instilled in me from 12 years of being in the service, anger from my childhood. So I was a very dangerous individual.
Yeah.
You take someone who's angry and pissed off, you couple that with someone who doesn't care anymore because they got nothing to lose, and then you put them in a body that's capable of doing physical damage to someone. Yeah. That's a bad combination.
Almost begging for a chance to be let loose.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I knew that when God saved me, I needed to find some way to cope better. Because I can't turn to drinking and alcohol and porn anymore, and I don't want to be Kyle punching drywall during the monsters, But I did, I tell you, my first year of marriage, there was holes in the wall, and I'm very ashamed of it. That was my Kyle phase. But what happened was I found the gym. The gym was the best coping, I mean, God was doing a work in my heart and in my life and changing things, but I knew I needed some physical release.
Yeah.
And when I was over in Iraq, we didn't have internet or none of that other stuff. I think they do now, which is crazy. But I got these magazines, and I don't know if your audience knows what a magazine is anymore, but it's got words and paper and pictures, and you can flip them. And there's a magazine called Muscular Development Magazine. I don't know if you ever heard of this one.
Heard of it? No, I've never looked.
So there was Muscular Development, there was Iron Man magazine. These were like big in the 80s and in the early 90s. I think they started phasing away. I think Generation Iron came from Muscular Development.
That sounds right, yeah.
So I would get these magazines, man. I'm overseas and we got little makeshift gyms that we're lifting crap, and I'm looking at these pictures, and I remember, like, dude, I can picture picture this picture. It was branch worn with these big, massive chains hanging around his neck. And he's in Metroflex Gym, and I didn't know it was Metroflex Gym at the time. I just saw this black and white picture of this terrifying looking dude who just looks like how I feel. Not how I look, but he looks like I feel, right? And, there's writing on the walls, there's cracks going to the foundation, there's like cobwebs and dust and blood on the floor. I'm like, I don't know where that gym is, but I need to be there. And the photographer was Per Barnell, who is hands down my favorite photographer in the world. Dream would be to have him shoot at our gym someday. But I see this picture, I'm like, that's the kind of place that I need. I was really inspired. I would cut out all those pictures, I'd put them up in my Foot Locker and stuff, in my bunk area. I'm like, that's what I got to get when I get home. Well, oddly enough, I needed it now because my whole life had been destroyed. Well, the problem is there ain't no gyms like that. This is early like 2010. There's no hardcore gyms in
all
Wisconsin.
Commercial gyms. Yep.
Yeah, and part that pisses me off is I opened our hardcore gym, and all of a sudden all these other ones started opening up in Wisconsin. I'm like, come on, man. So I'm working out at Anytime Fitness because it's walking distance from my house and where I'm staying. I don't have a car at the time, as I told you, So I could walk to the Anytime down the road, and I'm trying to make that fit what I need. So I'm like slamming weights, I'm screaming, and I'm not doing it to be like that bro lifter in the gym. I'm just like, you know what I'm saying? I'm angry.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not trying to show off. I know I'm not super big. I'm throwing the weights, I'm screaming, I'm yelling, I'm doing this because I am angry, and I don't know what else to do to get this stuff out of me. And they don't like that in those commercial gyms. Yeah. But there was a pretty dope guy there. The manager of the gym, he was a pretty good guy. He actually ended up hiring me and made me the training manager of his facility. Yeah. But it just wasn't the right environment for me. So after years of doing that, I'm in ministry, I'm working at these Anytime Fitnesses, I'm just like, this is not what I need. I get this, I hate saying God told me, and I won't ever say that. I think weird people say God told me. Like, people that live on the street with like signs that say the end is near and they wear the weird hat, they say God told them things. Yeah. Or the weird laser shoot guy on the televangelist say that. I don't say that. But I felt like maybe there was like this vision that God just put in my heart, right?
Yeah.
And it was to start a hardcore, old school type gym that was also combined with the ministry. The two things that I desperately needed. One, it was selfish because no one else had it. I need that, so maybe I build it. It can be for myself, but also I think there's other people like me out there. I think there's other people that are struggling, that are struggling with some of these same things I'm talking about, and they need some sort of an outlet. And if they can have that around an individual who might be able to point them to something better, man, this could be something. So I talked to my wife about it, man. We talked about this for years. And the problem is I got no credit because, the government took my money out of my bank. I still can't get an account with that same bank. We're good now, but I had to go through bankruptcy, so I can bench press more than my credit score, which is not a good thing. I have a horrible record if you look me up. That's not going to be hireable. I have no collateral. I don't have a home. Like, we have nothing. Like, we got a car that's worth $1,500. So like, who's going to give me a loan for $1.2 million to build this facility that I want? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
But I don't know, man. I really felt like God was in it, and He had done such an incredible work in my life. We were just kind of trusting Him. So I remember sitting down, I put pen to paper, and I kind of wrote this manifesto, man. It was 7 pages long, and it was who I was, what my story was, what I want to build, and what I want to do with this. And I had like a little blueprints that I had somebody draw up for me of what this building would look like. It has like a church, a worship area. It has the gym. It was going to have like tiny homes for vets, just for transitional housing, something that I needed. Somebody did offer me a tent in a park once to sleep in, and I was like, "That's no." There's got to be a better option. So I had this dream, bro, and we're like, "Who do we send this to? Who's going to give us money to do this?" Like, you got to be drunk, stupid, or crazy, and have a lot of money to want to invest in me. Like, this is not an investable face. Right? Like, if I come asking you for money, you're going to think I'm trying to rob from you. Like, you don't give someone like me money to start something. And I wouldn't trust me either, So we sent it out. We sat at Starbucks one day, my wife and I did, and we started stuffing envelopes. And I said, all right, hon, let's just figure out the richest people that we can think of that possibly are into human interest stories and investment people. So, I mean, bro, we were writing like Oprah, Ellen, Tom Cruise, like the Peter Pan Foundation in New York City, like any philanthropists, anybody we could think of. And we wrote to different famous pastors, authors, speakers, people that might be more like, okay, we can see how God could use a loser like you for something, right? We got back a lot of letters, and they were all rejection letters. So I have famous rejection letters.
That's pretty cool, though.
We just don't, like I want to frame them someday and just like put in my office and be like, those are all the people that said, not a chance, please don't write me back anymore. And not one person said they would. And we just sat there like, man, I really thought God was in this. I thought he wanted to do something. And I was pretty heartbroken. And then one day I get a phone call. So I'm still kind of doing this youth ministry thing, which was crazy. And I shouldn't have been doing that because I had no clue what I was doing. Like, you shouldn't trust me with your kids because I was still, like, I had no clue what I was talking about, And I remember I walked into the office of this place. And there's that little while you were out note, if you work at a corporate office, you get these things where people leave you little notes, this pink thing. And it said Brian Dobson on it. And I had an area code I didn't recognize. And I just stared at them like, there's no way that's the Brian Dobson. And if your people don't know who he is, or if you don't know who he is, Brian Dobson is, to me, I mean, he's bigger than Ronnie Coleman, bigger than Branch Warren. He's bigger than Dorian Yates. He's bigger than Phil Heath. He's bigger than Brandon Curry. Like, to me, Brian Dobson he's the ultimate in the fitness world. I mean, if you told me you could meet Arnold Schwarzenegger and train with him or sit down and have a steak with Brian Dobson, I'm going to sit down and have a steak with Brian Dobson at the time. Because every time I ever watched any workout videos online, any magazines I ever saw with bodybuilders, they either mentioned Metroflex Gym or they talked about Brian Dobson. Like, he's that guy that you don't know is behind the scenes everywhere. Like, that was the guy I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And he's a Christian man. And I knew all this stuff. I'm like, this is crazy. I got a message from him. Well, we had sent one of our packets to him. And he didn't know this, but I designed my gym in this manifesto off of his gym. Like, what I wrote would look like, I wrote it based off of his gym. Yeah. That was my inspiration. So I get this phone call, and I call him back up, and I'm like, my hands are shaking. I'm like, this could be my opportunity. This is my one shot. Like, guys like me, we don't get second chances. And I don't deserve a second chance. I'm like, this could be it. My hands were trembling. He answers the phone, and if you ever listen to an interview, you got to go, if you're watching, go YouTube Brian and listen to him talk. He talks like Hulk Hogan. I mean, the guy's, he's hilarious. So I pick the phone, and I hear on the other end of the line, Metroflex Gym, this is Brian Dobson. And I was like, oh, snap. Like, he answers his own phone. I figured this guy had a team of people, And I was like, hey, this is Kevin Niebuhr. I'm a guy from Wisconsin. Like, there's no way he's going to remember. And he goes, hey, Kevin, brother, how are you? I'm like, like, I'm a nobody in this world, bro. And he's like, I'm sorry it took so long to call you back. I'm like, took you why? So my mind is blown. Like, my idol is apologizing. He knows my name. Like, this is crazy. What's going on? And long story short, he's like, dude, I got your packet, man. I love this. He goes, I want to be a part of this. I was like, my first words were, why? Why?
Yeah.
Have you been drinking? It's noon. Mm-hmm. He's like, man, I love this. And he says, I love just the character and nature of Christ when he was on earth. He's the God of all creation, yet he humbles himself in the form of man to be subservient to his own creation to the point of death. And that's such a quality I want to emulate. And I saw that in Brian as he just is so humble. He goes, I don't know if you know who I am, but he goes, I have this little gym in Texas called Metroflex. And he goes, I trained some people named Ronnie Coleman and Johnny Jackson and Branch Warren. Like, you don't have to, like, you would think if any one of the people that we see in the gym world, right? Yeah. Everybody that has their Instagram that says blanky blank fit pro, right?
Yeah.
Like they name drop and they brag. They expect people to know who they are. Look at my followers. This man, he's like, I don't know if you know what I do. Like, yeah, I do, bro. It was such an inspiration and so humbling to see this guy act this way. At the end of the conversation, he goes, here's what I want to do for you. He goes, I got no money to give you. My money's tied up in ministries overseas. You know, he helps single-handedly support wells and clean water for tribes in Africa. This guy is dope, man. He goes, but what I do have is I have my gym. He goes, I want to give you a Metroflex for free. I just want you, I want to give you my name. You can have it.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want with it, with the condition that it's always attached to a ministry. If you do that, you can have it. So I'm the only Metroflex in the country that was given with a handshake deal and no contract. There's no contract, there's nothing. It's a handshake and a gentleman's agreement. I don't have to pay the licensing fees, the quarterly fees, the annual fees. I don't have to get permission to do anything. He's entrusted me with his name, which to me, I have a greater weight of how I handle the name of Metroflex than anyone else because they paid for it. Yeah, but mine was given out of respect, and I want to always make sure that I do right by it. You know?
Yeah.
So this was a huge thing. He goes, man, if come on out, I want to meet you. He goes, I'll fly you out there. We'll put you in a hotel. I'll take care of you. And we spent a couple days out there with Brian. It was amazing. I mean, there's so many stories. We could talk about it another time if you ever want to have him back on. But just some crazy stories of what happened down there. But we fly home, and we're now the proud owners of a Metroflex with no money in the bank and going to buy a gym. So, like, I don't know what we're supposed to do. Like, buy a power block and some jump ropes and call it Metroflex and put it in my garage. Like, what do we do? You know, you still need easy $250,000. You know, just for equipment alone. And he goes, Kevin, God's going to provide you with the equipment. He goes, I got all of mine for pennies on the dollar. It was a miracle. He goes, I trust God's going to do that for you. I'm like, well, yeah, I don't think so. And we sat on that name for 5 years, bro. 5 years. We didn't do nothing. 4 years maybe. I would get emails from Brian being like, Kevin, are you alive? Text, hey, you still out there, dude? I'm like, yeah. Unless you got money to give me, I don't know what to do. I'm still a poor dude with no credit. And, you know, the stories just get crazier. All of a sudden, one day my wife, she calls me up and she's freaked. I can just tell her. I've been married to her for, about like 6 years now. And I know her well. And just in her voice, it just doesn't sound right. She goes, you got to come to the bank. There's a problem. And all the blood rushes out of my body and goes in my butt, right? Because that's where it goes. It goes right to your butt. And I was like, oh, fudge. They're coming for the money that I owe. Yeah. See, prior to this, I thought all my crimes were taken care of when I got kicked out of the military. I didn't realize that there was still federal charges I was facing outside the military courts. I was actually got a phone call one day from a dude, a friend of mine, says, hey man, I got a call from the DA. They were asking me about you. I'm like, that was like 3 years. I'm a different person. You know, this is like 3-4 years after the fact or however it was. I end up like an idiot calling the DA and being like, hey, I'm Kevin. You don't have to call people. I'll talk to you. Yeah. Every lawyer's like, no, don't talk. And found out I was being brought up on 15 different federal charges, 15 felonies.
It's crazy.
5 counts of 3 different ones. So 5 counts of 3 different things. And I think it was larceny, identity theft, and fraud or something like that. I might be wrong. You know, I lawyered up and was able to get through on statute of limitations. Otherwise, I'd still be in federal prison right now. It wasn't jail time. It was federal crap prison time. Yeah. So I'm like, I thought this was done. But one of the things the lawyer said is, hey, if you need to pay the money back, can you pay it back? I'm like, we'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. So I come to the bank. I'm like, oh, this is not good. My wife shows me a bank statement. And at the bottom of it, there's 6 figures. And I'm like, that is not our money. So you got a picture. This is hilarious. You got 2 poor people in a bank trying to give the bank back a bunch of money. Yeah. We're like, this is not ours. We can't have this. They're like, this is your money. We're like, where did it come from? They're like, no. So I said, show us where it came from. And they pull up on the screen. It says like FED-USGOV, right? Okay. Like Federal United States Government. Exactly. That's a mistake. That's what they're trying to take. You know, like this is what I owe. It's pretty close to what I owe, or what I was supposed to owe. I'm like, there's no way. Yeah. So we're arguing with the bank. Just picture that.
Trying to hand
My
the
wife
back
and I, trying to argue with the bank. It's like the worst bank robbery in the history of bank robberies. You got two people that look like criminals yelling at tellers like, "Take our money back!" And they're like, "We don't want it. It's yours." And I'm like, "I'm not going to jail for this." And then finally they make a phone call, and it's incredible. It turns out, and I forgot I even did this years before this. And I never want to do it, but I had a friend who works with disabled vets that said, "Kevin, you're a hot mess. You can't hold down a job. You've been through crap. You need to go file for disability." Mm-hmm. And I finally did. And I always struggle with that because you see there's vets out there. They don't have legs. They don't have arms. Like that.
You feel like somebody needs it more than you?
Yeah. Like what's my problem? I scream at night, or I can't hold down a job. Like there's people worse than that. But I didn't. I totally forgot I did that. And turns out that money in that bank account was 10 years worth of back pay for my disability. I'm rated at 70% disabled, and it was 10 years worth. That was our money.
Insane.
It's
crazy how it works.
We broke down. We were just we fell down just crying. We're like, "Whoa, I can't believe this." And I always tell people, like, if you've ever been homeless, the first thing you do when you get a bunch of money is you use it and you buy a house. Like, I'm like, my kids will never experience what it's like not to have a home. And I was going to go out and buy a house cash. And for about a month, I was looking at homes to buy. I'm like, we're just getting one cash. We're going to be done. I'm going to take care of my family. And I remember driving back from a house one day, and it hit me in my stomach hard, bro. I was like, this isn't my money. I don't get to use this for me. Mm-hmm. I'm like, this is for the ministry. This is for that gym. This is for that vision. I put every single dime from that bank account into that gym. And I started looking around. I'm like, where can I find a gym for sale? Where can I find equipment? How can I start buying it up? Because even still, I didn't have enough. Like, I know how much you need to build a real, legit commercial gym. Yeah. I'm like, God, you're going to be creative with it. It's 6 figures, but you got to be creative with it. And all of a sudden, one day, I'm looking at Craigslist in Florida, right? I'm looking at Craigslist in Florida, and I see that there's a gym for sale, a whole freaking gym for sale. I've seen them before. I've been looking for like months. But it's a 1980s hardcore bodybuilding powerlifting gym. 70% of the equipment that we got in Metroflex came from that gym.
That's awesome.
100% of it came from the day that we bought it, right? I had to get some stuff from Rogue and Turf, And he's selling his whole freaking gym for $7,000, bro. I mean, you're talking, this is easy, $150,000 with equipment.
And nowadays, it's significantly more than that.
Oh, yeah. And I'm like, so I call him up, I'm like, bro, like, yeah, I'll buy this. He goes, I've already got a guy coming tomorrow to get it. Mm. And I thought, no, this is, God wants me to have this. This is it. This is Metroflex, man. Yeah. No, this guy can't have it. So I do like this power move, right? Because I got this money now, and I don't care about the money anymore. This is not my money. I'm not trying to save it. I said, I'll give you 3 times what that dude's paying for it, right? Mm. I said, he's coming for $7,000. I will give you $21,000 for all of it tomorrow morning. And he's like, if you're here in the morning, he goes, I'll sell it to you. He goes, where do you live? I'm like, Wisconsin. He's like, hey, you gotta laugh. So I'm like, I will be there. So I tell my wife, and we pray, and I don't know how I'm gonna get there, where I'm gonna stay, how I'm gonna get the stuff, how I'm gonna get home, how I'm gonna transfer the money. But I grab a checkbook, I pack up a duffel bag, and my wife drops me off at Dane County Airport, and I fly to Florida. I don't know how I'm going to get from the airport to where this guy is. I don't know where I'm going to sleep. I got nothing, but I know that this is going to work. And that's how Metroflex started. It was me in a hotel for a week, calling up places in New York City to try to rent semi-trucks, trying to get moving crews to move 7 tons worth of steel plates, trying to find a place in Wisconsin that's going to hold it for me, because I have no gym yet.
Yeah.
We don't have a building. We spent most of the money doing that, but I got that whole entire gym back up here in Wisconsin, and was able to get some of the other stuff, and we built Metroflex that way. And it was just miracle after miracle and crazy story after crazy story. And it seems like that's just been the way my life has worked ever since that day where I fell on the floor and cried out to him. It's been incredible. Ever since
you hit rock bottom, there's obviously a ton of contrast between where you're now and all the miracles and crazy things that happened to you along that path. Do you ever feel like you're living an imposter? You're an imposter in your own life?
Yeah. No, because, this is this is truly who I am. Like, I feel more me than I've ever felt before. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Even when you were successful initially?
Well, yeah, there was always, even when, and I can't say I was successful. By whose standards was I successful? I was in multiple relationships, cheating on women I was cheating on women with, filling coffee containers full of gin, driving to work, hammered, functional alcoholic, buying pills behind McDonald's from people at the gym, right? While stealing money and falsifying police reports to get people in the military, in a house that has become my identity, eating at a table that I brag about because it makes me feel better about myself. All the while, I'm this alpha male that people think is awesome. I don't call that success.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the most pathetic life ever.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think I was ever successful. I'm successful now.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't successful then.
There's a lot of people who seek reward in the world, kind of like the person they used to be back then. Like so a lot of my peers, they want money, they want wealth, they want women, they want power. How do they change that, what seems to be fulfilling them now, to the ultimate fulfillment?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're going to have an epistemological difference with this question, though, because I'm going to view it from a completely different standpoint than anyone else. And it's just there's not going to be a chunk of advice that you can give to someone with this, because I don't believe it's something you can receive unless it's a complete life change.
Yeah.
See, for me, when you say, how can they get that fulfillment? They're finding fulfillment in these things. No, you're not. Like, so I'm a hedonist. You know what hedonism is?
You have to remind me.
Okay, so a hedonist means you live for pleasure. Whatever feels good, you do, right? And that's basically the model of society right now, right? Everything is subjective. We live in a society of subjective moralism, right? There's no such thing as absolute morals or values anymore, is there?
There's not.
Well, you can't say there are, because people say, well, this is wrong. And I would say, by whose standards? And you would say, well, by society's standards. I'd be like, well, that's not true, because you also say that what we're really pushing nowadays with this total acceptance of all people is say, if it feels good for them, that means it's right. Yeah. Well, now you're making right and wrong up to an individual. And if you leave right and wrong up to an individual, then who's to say that the guy that wants to rape little children is not right for himself? Who are you to tell him he's wrong? Like, listen, man, there's got to be objective morals and values in society.
Yeah. At
what point in time can we say, yes, this is absolutely wrong? So we really struggle with that. Everything is subjective right now. I'm someone who just deeply desires pleasure, and I will pursue pleasure to great lengths to be able to be satisfied and have pleasure. And prior to God changing my life, that was through all the different things. It was power. Power is a big one. Ego and pride. It was more than sex for me. I would rather find a powerful man and make him subservient to me and make him make myself feel like he's my back pocket than be with a beautiful woman. Because to me, power was everything, and I had a lot of power. I collected people. The more important people I have, that would make me feel good about myself. Mm-hmm. So I still am someone who is very hedonistic, but what I realize is the things that I was chasing that brought me pleasure, that made me feel successful, like you said, again, it's very subjective. I never felt totally satisfied. I never was satisfied.
Yeah.
If I had the money, I wanted more money. If I had the woman, I wanted another woman. Or if I had all those women, then I wanted more beautiful women. And if I had this, then I wanted the newer one, or the bigger one, or the better one. If I had that guy doing this for me, then I wanted more, and I wanted his boss doing this for me.
Yeah.
So there's never an end to it. It's just this empty pit that screams more and more and more. And nowadays we just say, well, hashtag grind. I'm going to grind to get more. It's like, no, man, you were a slave to your own pleasures. It's sad and pathetic. So now what's happened is I've realized that my ultimate satisfaction and my ultimate pleasure is found in God and God alone, right? So I've discovered who the creator of the universe is, and through entering into a loving relationship with him, I found the deepest satisfaction ever in just him. My delight is in him, my satisfaction is in him, my pleasure is in him, and I want more. I still am a hedonist, but I'm a Christian hedonist now. I want to experience every day the maximum amount of pleasure that I can through pleasing God, right?
Yeah.
And when your pleasure isn't something that is absolute, not subjective, right? when it's in something that is steadfast and not changing, when it's in something that is inherently good, not subjectively good, well, then everything comes together. So, when you say, what do you say to these guys that want to be able to experience more pleasure? I would say it's recognizing that your pleasures are controlling you. Your idea of success is controlling you. You're a slave to your desires. And until you can find a satisfaction, something that is absolute, eternal, and good, you're just going to chase stuff your whole life.
Yeah.
And you're never going to be satisfied. And that's why men cheat in relationships. That's why marriages crumble. That's why people push their kids to do more. That's why they aren't satisfied with their job. That's why we have hashtags like grinding. That's why everybody wants to have more followers on YouTube. They're just trying to find more and more and more.
Exactly.
You ain't going to find it.
Yeah.
I'm fully happy with 2 followers on Instagram and nobody knowing my name. I'm fully satisfied.
That's awesome. It's crazy how far you came from that. The person you told me about originally. It's also very inspirational, thinking that people are going to be able to take what you went through and use it to maybe try and improve their lives. And God was obviously a huge source of improvement in yours. How you became such a successful person and rose above what you had originally been. How does one find God?
Yeah, he's not Waldo. You know what I mean? Like, I knock in your question. I hear what you're saying, but I always laugh when somebody's like, I hear people say, I found God. I'm like, where was he? Okay. Like, was he out on a corner somewhere? Like, how did you find him? I didn't find him. The reality is, for me, it was a journey of recognizing that I just had to open my eyes up to realize that God has always been with me. Right? The moment we think we have to find God, it creates this idea that somehow God is here, right? And people are here, and God kind of sits passively, right?
Yeah.
God creates this universe, and he's this deity that just sits back, and he waits for his creation to somehow turn and find him. And that's kind of this idea we have. That's why we say, well, I found God, or I turned to God, or I came to God. I'm like, that's absolute crap. We are blessed to have a creator who is constantly pursuing his creation. Every single second of their life, we're just blind to it. I can look back and realize my biggest sin wasn't pride, arrogance, sex, wasn't excess. It was blindness. It was spiritual blindness. God has been pursuing every single person from the moment that they take their first breath until the moment they take their last breath. God is active in his creation. He doesn't sit back from it. He has entered into human history. He's pursuing people, desperately desiring a relationship with every single person. It's not a matter of you finding God. He's found you. He's with you. You just haven't turned your stupid head to recognize that he's there and bent your knee to him, So how do you find him? Well, you don't. I think it starts by realizing that God is with you. He's pursuing you. He loves you. He desires to be with you. And then it's simply an act of recognizing that and submitting to that.
Yeah.
The hard part is, especially in the fitness world and the world that you're in, that I'm in. And I'm in a lot of different worlds. I'm also in another world of is a little bit more seedy, and more stories for another time. But we are really focused on self in the fitness world, right? Everything's image, image. Even like, I don't know when this happened, but back when Dorian Yates used to put out, I don't know if you ever watch Blood and Guts.
Heard of his stuff.
You gotta watch it. You can't have a fitness podcast.
Okay. I'll take a look at that.
If you're watching this YouTube video, unsubscribe to his channel until he watches Blood and Guts. Then come back and resubscribe. But like, you watch it was solely about bodybuilding, man. They called him the Shadow. They called him the Shadow. It wasn't because he had a big back and he cast a shadow. It was because like he would come out for the Olympia, dominate, and then he'd just disappear into the shadows. You wouldn't see him again. He kept his nose down. Nowadays, like, bodybuilders are like the Colin Von forget his last name.
Colin Von Mauger.
Yeah, this is the typical bodybuilder of this generation, where you don't see just hardcore training in a gym. You're seeing their cars, their motorcycles, their house. It's like a bad episode of MTV Cribs on anabolics. You
Yep.
know what I mean? And we have this idea that in the fitness world, it's all about this image, all about image, getting more, getting the car, getting the hot girlfriend with you, the Gymshark clothing, you know, and repping all this and showing your watches. So like when you start talking about how do you find God and bring him into this, I think the biggest concern that I have is that there's this idea that, okay, I'm hearing this guy's inspirational story. He found success, and maybe he found success because he found God, right? So if I just maybe if I come to Christ, he's going to reward me with a bigger house, a bigger car, more connections with more favor. And that's the dominant message of Christianity in America today. You got Joel Osteen, Stephen Furtick, all these guys are out there saying, listen, God wants you to be happy, healthy, wealthy, and successful. I'm like, I don't know what Bible you reading, but like my biggest heroes in the Bible, they suffered, they were in jail, and they were murdered. You know? You don't go to God for what he gives you. You go to God for what you can give him. You feel me?
Yeah.
Like I get emotional saying it, man. I deserve nothing from my Creator. I have done nothing to be worthy of any blessings at all. My entire life is laid out as a sacrifice to bring him any type of glory. And any glory I give him just gives me greater satisfaction. So the idea that, you know, how do you find God and where do you find him? My biggest concern is to understand, first off, he ain't the blue genie in Aladdin, man. He ain't here to grant your wishes and cure your cancer, give you bigger muscles, give you a better car, and make you have success.
Yeah.
If anything, he's here to take it all away. He took all of it away from me. He took everything away from me. But in doing so, I mean, I got my greatest blessing. That was I can have complete satisfaction living my life for the glory of God.
Yeah.
Imperfectly, because I'm still a wretched dirtbag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Such a crazy story. And obviously we could probably talk for hours about all the various events in your life. But I think it's probably safe to say to leave the listeners with that, and hopefully they'll be able to take something away from it, which they definitely will.
Well, I hope so, man. Yeah,
lives will be changed here.
There's a lot more stories. There's a lot more to say, and you know that's kind of why. Actually, last month we decided that we were going to try to start doing a push for a social media platform.
Yes.
So I just started up my own personal Instagram channel. So that's you can find me. I'm at Niebuhr.Kevin is my Instagram, or just type in Kevin Niebuhr, Niebuhr. But that's my personal page. I just started. The idea here is I'd like to start want to build a following. We're putting out content every day for you guys, not just pictures, not just cool stuff to look at, but everything has something inspirational, something challenging. And then I believe it's not next month. So what are we in? January, February, March. So May 6th, I think May 6th we drop our podcast. And then that'll be on Spotify and all the major podcast ones. And then we'll also be on YouTube with it. And then from there, we're looking to continue just build momentum and get to just start telling stories, man, and talking about stuff. Obviously, everything's going to have that ministry, fitness, and also the other worlds I'm involved in, which are stories for another time. But then hopefully I have a book that I'm working on that as we start hopefully getting this platform a little bit bigger, we can release the book, move into some speaking engagements and whatnot. And just, I think I'm finally ready to bring my stories in my life to a larger platform.
It's going to be crazy hearing all the ones that I haven't heard yet, and watching you affect change in so many people's lives.
Well, it's not me that's affecting the change, man.
Yeah.
It ain't me. I haven't done anything good. If anything good happens, it's just God has mercy on an idiot like me and uses me as a mouthpiece. So.
It's incredible. Hey, everyone who's watching this, make sure you go follow him. I'll be reposting his stuff as he does it, and can't wait to see the podcast. You said May 6th?
May 6th, we drop the podcast, yeah. So it'll be, there'll be a link in my Instagram, and it'll be pushed, the videos will be on YouTube and then all the major platforms, and the podcast is called Go and Tell. So go, the and sign and tell, Go and Tell is the podcast.
Go follow him. Hope everyone enjoyed the podcast. Pleasure having you on.
Absolutely. Thanks, Colin. I appreciate it, man.
Have a good day, guys. Bye.